I faithfully uphold the constitutions
of the state of Minnesota and the United States,
of the states of Minnesota and the United States,
and will faithfully perform the duties
and will faithfully perform the duties
of the office of manager
of the office of manager
of the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District
of the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All managers are present. I know we have guests this evening. Is there anyone here who wanted to talk to the board about something that is not on the agenda? This will be the time, okay. With one change, I will take 12.1 at the end of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Manager Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Manager Maxwell, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Do you want to do a roll call? Well, you said they were all.
I just said we were present. I could do a roll call if you want me to.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we're following.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I've been known to miss
Did I-
things time.
That I moved.
On the consent agenda, we have two items this evening: approval of February 27th board meeting minutes and Resolution 25-018, which is authorization to extend the contract with Solution Builders for IT managed services. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move approval?
Manager Olson, second. Manager Hitchmati. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I have no report to give this evening because I have had no meetings in the last 2 weeks. So Manager Loftus, would you report on Operations and Programs Committee meeting?
Yes, thank you, President White. This evening we met to discuss our permitting program and got a nice update on where they're at strategically and how they might bring that information back to the board on a regular basis. And the permitting staff did a great job kind of asking what information the board would like to see, how they are incorporating themselves into other strategic initiatives that we have. And so it was a great presentation, and I think going forward, they will be presenting on a somewhat regular basis. This was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other meetings or events to report on? The upcoming meetings are shown, our usual schedule for board and committee, and the Minnesota Watershed special meeting will be held on the 21st of March in Wake Park. Manager Olson and I are delegates, and Manager Maxwell is an alternate for that meeting. Otherwise, it's just our usual schedule. Oh, CAC, I knew there was something. The CAC meets on the March 19th.
Yep.
And that's Manager Olson, you're attending that?
Yep.
Our next item of business is item 10.1, which is permit 24560, Ms. Menden presenting. Because we have guests this evening, I'll just run down the order of business that we'll proceed here. First, Ms. Menden will present, and then I will ask anyone who wishes to comment to the board to do so at that time, and then following that, the board will consider the permit. If you do wish to speak, I'll ask you to come forward to the microphone, give us a name and address, and you may have, maybe take 3 to 5 minutes if you can focus your comments, and know that you may say, talk about any aspect of it. The only aspect the board will be discussing this evening is the permit. We'll certainly make note of other issues that are brought forward, but the permit will be our only order of business. Yes. So, Ms. Menden, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, President White and Board of Managers. Tonight I will be presenting permit 24-560 for Highway 11 and the road project in Carver County. The project, which is proposed by Carver County, involves road reconstruction, infrastructure improvements, and the construction of a trail that connects Carver Park with downtown Victoria. The permit is being brought before the board for consideration due to concerns raised by residents of Lake Zumbra during the district's public notice period. Resident concerns, which I will speak to more later, relate to wanting a larger culvert underneath the road to address high water concerns upstream on Lake Zumbra. Staff and the district engineer have reviewed this application and confirmed its compliance with all applicable district rules, and therefore are recommending that the board approve this permit this evening. I'll first present the proposed project and how it meets the district rules, and then I'll discuss our engagement with the Zumbra residents in Carver County leading up to this evening. So starting with location, Highway 11 is located within the city of Victoria, within the 6 Mile Creek sub-watershed. It connects Highway 7 to the north and Highway 5 to the south. This map shows Highway 11 in relation to the rest of the 6 Mile Creek Halstead Bay sub-watershed. At a high level, all of the drainage from this project ultimately discharges to East Lake Auburn, and then it makes its way to 6 Mile Creek and then Halstead Bay. Auburn also receives over 37,000 acres of runoff from upstream lakes such as Pearson, Marsh, Wasserman, and Carl Cray. So now zooming into the project area, you can see that the road travels through the middle of Carver Park Reserve. Roughly half of the road drains to Stone Lake, and then from Stone it goes to Sunny, making its way through a wetland, and then under Highway 11 into East Auburn. A small portion of the road drains through wetlands inside the park and then meets up with that flow path through Sunny. The remaining areas drain directly to Auburn. We'll touch more on this later, but the runoff from Zumbra also drains into Sunny, and then it follows that flow path. And one of the concerns of the Zumbra residents is that during high water events, water from Sunny actually ends up backflowing into Zumbra. Transitioning to our rule analysis, this project is proposing to disturb 33.9 acres, so it triggers our erosion control rule. The applicant is proposing to meet this rule by incorporating best management practices such as silt fences, temporary and permanent stabilization of disturbance, and floating silt curtains along the wetlands and water bodies, all of which are included in their stormwater pollution prevention plan. As a result of the shoulder widening with this project, there's a 327 cubic yards of fill being proposed within the floodplain of Lake Auburn. The floodplain alteration rule requires a no net loss of floodplain storage, so to offset that, the county is proposing to provide 504 cubic yards of flood mitigation in the area shown in red. This floodplain excavation also serves to offset floodplain fill from a link transportation project to the south, shown in blue, which is Victoria's 5 and 11 roundabout project. In terms of wetland protection and the Wetland Conservation Act, within the right-of-way there are 13 delineated wetlands totaling 4.46 acres. Due to the shoulder widening, the trail construction, and the excavation for that flood mitigation area, the project is proposing 1.14 acres of wetland impacts. These impacts have been evaluated and determined to be necessary to meet the public need and purpose for the project. 0.71 acres of these impacts are being regulated and replaced by the Local Government Road Replacement Program, which is a state program implemented with coordination with the Board of Water and Soil Resources, which provides wetland mitigation credits for road projects that are being reconstructed for the purpose of improving safety. The remaining 0.4 acres of impacts are regulated by the watershed and the Army Corps and will be replaced using wetland banks. Since impervious surface is created upstream of wetlands, this project is also required to have wetland buffers. The applicant proposes these buffers within the right-of-way in the areas between the impervious surface and the wetland edges. The buffers will be established using a native roadside seed mix and then maintained as stated in the programmatic maintenance agreement. The change in hard cover triggers the need for the stormwater management. The impervious surface will increase by 6.1 acres due to the shoulder widening, the addition of turn lanes, and the trail construction. So to satisfy these requirements, the applicant is proposing to use filtration trenches that will impound the water and then treat that through ditch checks. And an example of the trench is shown on the screen. To meet our rate requirements, the applicant provided modeling showing no increase in peak discharge rates from the road as a whole, and that there are no increases in 100-year flood elevations for downstream lakes. The district engineer has reviewed and determined that this project meets all applicable stormwater requirements. The project proposes 4 culverts that trigger our water body crossings and structures rule as they contact the bed or bank of a wetland or a stream. The first 3 are in-kind replacements that retain hydraulic capacity, serve a public purpose, do not impact navigation, aquatic, or wildlife passage, and have been designed to not promote erosion or scour. The 4th culvert conveys water from upstream Sunny into Auburn and is the structure that has drawn the interest from the Zumbra residents. Under current condition, there's a deteriorated 24-inch pipe that has been lined with an 18-inch plastic pipe. The county proposes to replace that with an 18-inch pipe on the Sunny side, then a 48-inch overflow control structure, followed by a 21-inch pipe into Auburn. The county has integrated this overflow structure to address concerns from residents regarding clogging during high flow. So the structure will allow high flows to overtop the vertical structure in the event that the 18-inch culvert gets clogged. For the district's water body crossings and structures rule, structures in a water course, like this 4th culvert, are not allowed to increase upstream or downstream a 100-year flood stage. The county has designed this culvert and supplied modeling, which has been reviewed by the district engineer to ensure that no changes in flood stage result from this design. Now turning to our engagement with the Zumbra residents. Knowing that there's a history of concerns from residents on Zumbra and how the district has been engaged in the past with the DNR, Carver County, the City of Victoria, and Three Rivers, the district worked with Carver County to expand the public notice area, which is shown in blue, to intentionally include Zumbra residents. During the public notice period that ended on February 17th, we heard from 2 residents who expressed a desire to see a larger culvert size and requested a meeting to discuss. I'll note that we've received additional emails since that meeting, and I think 3 within the past 2 hours, expressing that these residents do not, or requesting that the district not approve this project as currently designed. On February 25th, the district hosted a meeting with members of the HOA, the district engineer, the administrator, and the county project manager, who's here with us tonight. Feedback from residents during that meeting mirrored dialogue that occurred between 2014 and 2017, when the district convened Carver County, Three Rivers, City of Victoria, and the DNR to evaluate the high water dynamics. During our recent meeting, the HOA requested that the county consider upsizing to a 6-foot box culvert to match the outlet of Auburn, or that the district specify a different design that would then permit for the county. During the meeting, we reviewed the hydraulics of the area, and the county explained that it designed the culvert to address concerns of clogging and high water operations and sought to obtain a permit without a district variance. The county also noted that they engaged directly with Zumbra residents early on in this process. The county explained at that time that the project had been publicly bid, and since then we understand that the contract for construction has been awarded. So to reiterate, the district is not in a position to specify a different design and considers the proposed project to meet all of its requirements, which includes that the flood stage upstream and downstream has not changed. So jumping back in time briefly to recap the high water study completed in 2015 and 2017. In 2014, the district received 13 inches of rain in the month of June, which is triple normal monthly totals. This produced a flood of record for the entire watershed. 17 lakes in the district experienced record-breaking high water levels, with one of them being Lake Zumbra. During that flooding event, based on data provided by the HOA, 4 of the 50 homes were impacted due to overland flow and seepage. Based on recent meetings with the HOA, we understand that those individual property owners have implemented protections on their own property, which we are really glad to hear. In response to the 2014 event, the district convened a cross-agency partnership and provided a technical study of the hydrology and outlets. As part of that multi-year conversation, a range of alternatives were explored, all of which provided different levels of benefit upstream and different levels of flood stage impacts downstream. The study also focused on role clarity against all of these agencies. And since the district does not own the infrastructure in question, its role was to delineate or to provide technical guidance with the responsibility to advance and coordinate infrastructure, being that of its partners. So, in conclusion, while the district has engaged repeatedly with its public agency partners and the Zumbra residents on this issue, before the board tonight is a transportation project that has been designed to meet all applicable district rules as determined by staff and the district engineer and in consultation with the legal counsel. As such, staff recommend that the board approve the permit as proposed with the conditions that final plans, WACA decisions, and a programmatic maintenance agreements be provided. So with that, I'll turn it back to President White.
Thank you, Ms. Menden. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and speak to the board? Okay,
Come up here.
yes, there's a microphone, Ms. Menden set up
Right here?
there. And then, of course, begin with your name and address.
Yes. My name is Chip Kempinen. I live at 5611 Zumbra Drive. Been a resident there for 32 years. Back in 2014, we were one of the homes that had to sandbag to keep our house from getting flooded. We did not get any water in our house, but we had the Victoria Fire Department helped us construct a wall, quite a substantial sandbag wall. So my concern is that whatever can be done, that would not be repeated. That's what I'm looking for. There was mention about some residents taking some measures after that, and I did do that. I built a berm in my backyard, but last summer we elected to remove it again. So I'm basically still at the same elevation as I was back in 2014, as far as my backyard's concerned, facing the lake. So obviously I am concerned about the backflow from Stone from the flow from Stone into Sunny, and then Sunny, which is really at one time part of Lake Zumbra, backflowing into Zumbra. My concern that I've never heard anybody address is I believe that the development up by Kings Point Road, Woodland Cove area, there's a lot of new businesses and homes and townhouses. That whole area has a lot more hard surface than it did. It was historically a cornfield, basically, and absorbed a lot of water. It's obvious that in heavy rain situations, water drains from that area and goes eventually to Stone Lake under Highway 7, and then from Stone Lake to Sunny. And it's my understanding that, and I observed it, in fact, Bill, I don't know if you remember this, but Bill was there. He and I met, first time I met him was at the culvert on the bike path between Zumbra and Sunny back in, I assume it was June or maybe early July 2014. But the water flow was actually, you could visually see it was going from Sunny Lake into Zumbra Lake. And, you know, that's contrary to what it would normally be ever. With the additional runoff coming from Woodland Cove, I'm concerned that there's not enough, I don't know what the right terms are, but enough remediation to absorb the runoff from that area and keep it from developing that same situation that backs into Lake Zumbra. So the fix for me is we need to make sure the water can flow through Three Rivers Park and through that culvert under Highway 11. I believe back after the flood in 2014, Three Rivers Park did some dredging in order to remove fill that's come in over the years so that water could more freely go from Sunny through the park to that culvert. I also know from living there for many years that that culvert historically was getting clogged a lot, and some of our residents would go there and manually unclog it. So I just want to make sure all that information is available. My main concern for coming here was to make sure I got firsthand information on what was going on with this thing. And if the design is proper, it's proper, but it would sure be nice if there was, I remember we talked about having the square culvert at one time. I remember talk about putting auxiliary smaller culverts at a higher elevation on one side or the other of that culvert in case of flooding. That would let a little more water go through. I don't know if any of those are doable, but those are things that I remember being discussed back in the day. I think that's everything, unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Mr. Campton, appreciate it.
Okay.
Appreciate all of you coming.
Can I ask Maggie to put that slide up of the flow
Yeah.
diagram, please? Oh, right there, hold on.
This one?
No, go to the neighborhood. Where is your home, by the way, on this map?
Can I point it out on the map?
Sure.
That'd probably be helpful. My home is this one right here.
Okay.
So that, my backyard was flooded and would have come to the house had it not been sandbagged.
Okay.
There's some other residents here that had worse problems than we had in our lots.
Because that park across the road was flooded too at the time.
In the center here?
Yeah,
Yeah, but there's a pond in there,
yeah.
and then the park, and it's kind of by design that would fill in a flooding situation.
Okay.
But it only did that 1 year, to my recollection.
And I might ask you to stay right there. Can you now go to that blue arrow flow? That showed the water routing its way to the... It was early, right there. You talked about the culvert that goes from Woodland Cove to Stone.
Yeah, well, there is runoff from that Woodland Cove area. Eventually, a lot of it goes to Stone, I know. And when they started doing construction, they even had to bring some riprap in one area because of the erosion that was caused by the runoff.
Okay, but we don't have a direction of water coming into Stone showing that right now. Do you know where it goes under 7?
Mr. Meehan,
Yeah, President White, Manager Olson. It comes across right about over here.
Okay,
Comes down and just to this wall. So it makes its way through, gets into this watershed. It was part of the watershed before, still part of the watershed after.
okay.
I want to move us back to the permit here. Can I get a motion to approve the permit?
Move approval.
Manager Miller, is there a second?
Second.
Manager,
Wait. We have a lot of questions. There's several people that still want to speak.
someone else wants to speak now? Yes, come forward.
Do you want to wait till discussion?
Pardon?
Do you want to wait till discussion?
No.
Okay.
All right, good evening. My name is Kevin Lohman. I'm a resident of the Zumber neighborhood and currently the president of the Homeowners Association. Thank you, Ms. Menden, for presenting. As Ms. Menden stated, that the project meets the district's rules, and I think that she also stated that it meets the rules because the current culvert meets the rules. And the new culvert was based on the existing culvert since it meets the current regulations. Sometime during the 80s, the culvert in question was downsized from 24 inches, I believe, to deterioration, and was lined with an 18-inch insert. So at some point in our previous history, the culvert wasn't 18 inches, it was 24 inches. And I haven't heard yet why that wasn't investigated. What I'm asking the board to do is to deny the permit, to give the community and the builders, the project builders, an opportunity to investigate if the culvert can be enlarged. Because I don't think that question has been asked yet. And an appropriate survey or investigation has taken place. So yes, and then can you bring up the one that shows the actual culverts from the Highway 7? There we go. So I think there you can see the arrows. Are those the black arrows going into Stone Lake? Are those the existing culverts? So there you can see now where those two culverts lead into the park that drain the water from the new development to the north of 7. And I haven't found anything, but I believe those two culverts have been improved. Maybe you you guys can speak to that, if those were enlarged or not. And there is a significant amount of water that comes through there, and then into Stone, then eventually into Lake Zumbra. I believe the culvert number 2 there at Sunny has been improved and enlarged, but culvert number 3, the one in question now, is the one that we're talking about. Has been, at one time was 24 inches and now has been reduced to 18 inches. And I think this is the opportunity. Projects get delayed all the time. Things come up and that are uncovered and are brought to light and cause the delays. And if we go forward with this project and don't have an opportunity to investigate if the culvert can be enlarged, we're missing a large opportunity here, which I hope not. I hope it doesn't cause any further damage, but could potentially cause further damage and make the problems worse. So again, I'm respectfully asking that you deny the permit to give time for the project managers to investigate if the culvert can be enlarged.
Thank you, Mr. Levin.
Thank you.
Perhaps we could hear about the culvert from you, Mr. Meehan, and maybe some of the community engagement background from Mr. Whisker.
Chair White, managers, absolutely right. The resident is right as far as the culvert underneath County Road 11. The original pipe was a 24-inch corrugated metal pipe that was put in place in 1976. The pipe that was inserted into that 24-inch for maintenance concerns was an 18-inch HDPE pipe. And the difference, the ability to have a smaller pipe, it's a much smoother pipe. So when we looked and we did the study back in 2015, we looked at the capacity of the corrugated metal pipe, and they have the waves, so you don't essentially have a smooth flow going through the pipe. With the actual HDPE pipe, it's a smooth pipe, much more smoother. So by actually putting in that, while it's a smaller pipe, it's a smoother pipe that has a greater capacity. So that when the county did that, they were looking to leverage the existing infrastructure, but try to maintain as best as they could what the capacity was, but actually did increase it with the HDPE, so allowing it a more efficient system. Much like what they're doing right now with the system that they have is addressing that capacity, but then providing a safeguard as far as if they have debris management, the overflow that comes along it as well. In regards to the pipes along Highway 7, those met all our requirements. They were in kind as far as replacement goes, so they were matching those, much like the majority of the pipes we're seeing on County Road 11 as well too. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. And as to the matter of having time to investigate options, there has been a lot of time spent here, I think.
President White, managers, I think to speak to the investigation of alternatives, Maggie did a great job of just briefly pointing back to our experience between 2015 and 2017 with our investigation of high water dynamics, where the watershed district, post-2014 flood, again, a flood of record for the watershed. So, of course, we experienced impacts across our 178 square miles, and in particular in Zumbra. In response to that, we pulled together Carver County, Three Rivers Park District, both of whom are the owners of the infrastructure in question, the residents, the City of Victoria, that's the local land use authority, and the Department of Natural Resources, which also plays a role in oversight and regulation of ordinary high waters of the state of Minnesota. So they set water levels and also have a role in flood risk management. And at that time, our charge was really twofold. We looked at diagnosing the hydraulics in the system and understanding, outside of the 2014 event, which was a record, what are the flow dynamics in the system. And the backwater that's been discussed was part of what the modeling concluded, is that water from Stone comes down to Sunny. Sunny raises higher than Zumbra. That creates a backwater effect and does create high water levels. That study included a historic review of the basins, which have been increased in connection over time by humans. So 1937 to 1940, if you look at the aerials, there's larger wetland complexes between the two. They didn't have dredged channels connecting them. So over time, humans have connected the system, placed different culverts in place that have obviously contributed to the backflow and water dynamics. Beyond understanding the hydraulics, the other thing that we were charged with is identifying a range of potential solutions. We obviously didn't look at or have the resources to look at an infinite number of solutions, but we did identify a range of those that Maggie spoke to, having different benefits upstream and different impacts downstream. And so County Road 11 culvert was evaluated, and if it was evaluated in isolation for modification, it was evaluated for modification in tandem with holding more water back in Stone Lake. There were looks at backflow flaps that would prevent some of the backflow from Sunny into Zumbra. And in evaluating those, the one that provided the largest magnitude of relief for the Zumbra residents at the time was a backflow preventer. I don't have it in front of me, but it was something like 7 or 8 tenths of foot flood relief during those 100-year high water events. And so we didn't make recommendations. We just evaluated, if you replumbed the system, what are the range of benefits and impacts. In contrast to that backflow preventer, I think it looked at a doubling, if I recall. I might be misspeaking, so I don't have it immediately in front of me, but if it's an 18-inch right now, it looked at like twin 18s, and that provided only a tenth of a foot benefit for the Zumbra residents. And I think the conclusion there was to have relief of magnitude that the residents might be interested in, you'd actually have to open it up even larger. We've heard 6 feet, but also that you'd have to work in the other parts of the system upstream. And I think we know that if you increase the outlet to Zumbra, the culvert at Sunny and Auburn, you are going to have negative flood impact consequences downstream. So there's a range of alternatives looked at that time and discussed repeatedly with elected officials, with leadership from the Homeowners Association in a series of public meetings at Victoria City Hall, at the Lowry Nature Center with Three Rivers Park District. And ultimately, there was some traction towards advancing the backflow preventer that never ultimately materialized. But through that conversation, we also heard comment here at the board meeting by members that are in the audience tonight asking the district to take a leadership role. And where we really landed was we've identified the hydraulics, we've identified a range of solutions, but we also worked with all of our public partners to identify role clarity of what the district's responsibility is and isn't. And really where we landed is providing technical advice and a permitting role, knowing that Three Rivers Park District and Carver County are owners and operators of the infrastructure, and that we pulled everybody together and provided the study. So, I can't speak to what the impacts of a project delay would be. It's the county's project. Jordan Van Ort's in the audience. He can speak to that. But we have investigated this. We have pulled people together, taken a partnership role, done the studies, worked with the public agencies, the residents, and outlined a range of alternatives. We just haven't picked one and advanced it ourselves because we don't own the infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Whisker. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the board?
My name is Scott Leonard, and I live at 5601 Zumber Drive. And James is correct. We've looked at this thing 6 ways to Sunday for better part of 4 decades now. And I'm not sure if all of you are the same people I addressed some 6, 7 years ago about this issue. But bottom line is despite all of the possibilities and solutions that were proposed, none of them had any significant effect on this situation. So although we appreciate the hydrology studies and all the work that the watershed district put in, it just didn't help. So what do? As James said, humans created this system. That's what we live with. We live with a system that turns Lake Zumbra into a storage basin for downstream water that can't get through that little 18-inch culvert. That's the situation. We're not here really to talk about, although Chip did describe the situation in 2014. Everybody flooded, we get it. That's not really our point. Our point is that when that culvert is overwhelmed and not allowed to push water through, or clogged, which it has been quite a bit in the past, that water backflows up into our lake, causing an artificial bounce in our water level. And number one, our lake cannot drain while this is happening. So it creates an extremely vulnerable situation for the Lake Zumbra Basin. If we get any subsequent water, we cannot drain because we're taking on water from this problem, this culvert. So it's extremely vulnerable situation. It's a terrible hydrology system from that respect. Secondly, our second biggest concern is it infringes on our rights to use the lake for our recreational purposes because we get frequent no wake zones. So we can't really use the lake for recreation during these periods. And lastly, yes, we have had some property damage along the way, some erosion problems. So I'm sure that this permit checks all the boxes that you need to check to send it through. I know that the DNR has already approved this. But what's interesting to me, rules aside, it's been a long-standing situation that we've brought to this body as well as many others, that this is a problem. And it's a culmination of all kinds of human-created issues. And I know that in your goals and objectives, you try to balance humans, community with natural and so on. Well, this is a perfect example of something that needs to be corrected. And James himself said, yeah, this hydrology creates this very strange occurrence of asking a headwater water body to take on and store water for a downstream system. I can't find another system in the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, which there may be, but I haven't been able to find any other place where this occurs. Okay? So when it comes to the interest, and there were only 3 neighbors, no, when we found out that this culvert was going to be changed, because we did discuss it many, many times over many decades. But to do that was, we stopped traffic. It was a major deal. This is an opportune time to fix this. I myself spoke with Seal Strauss at the DNR, who's the state floodway manager, and she said, yeah, we've got the permit, we looked at it, it doesn't change anything up or downstream that we can see, or upstream, and so we didn't really know there was going to be an issue. But she concurred with me that this would be the opportune time to look at it, at a situation. Now, they've already approved this, okay? And when it comes to this idea that we, had our opportunity through public notices and all of this kind of thing, that really, again, you can check your boxes, but as a partner, as a group, an organization that has high interest in this particular culvert, that's been known to you and to all the other agencies involved, you'd have thought maybe on the front end of this project, we'd have gotten a call to our HOA president and said, hey, this is coming up. Being a partner, as you all like to partner with the residents, come to the table, let's see what we can do. That never happened, okay? We found out when the little green card came to us a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and we had to call and we had to ask, and then we found out that this was going to be changed. That's how we found out. So we're here today to ask you not to approve this. And we would like the opportunity to work with you and to work with all the other agencies involved to finally remedy this situation once and for all. It's been a long, long time. And most of you probably don't know how far back this goes. In the 70s, there was going to be a weir put in where that culvert is to manage this problem. And the watershed district and the DNR could not agree on the water level to maintain Zumbra at. It was approved, it was funded, but because these two agencies could not agree, they used up all the appropriated funds in their own legal battle between them, and the project never happened. And this has perpetuated since then. So, yeah, you can check the box. I'm sure the no-rise rules, from what I've understood, works downstream. Doesn't work upstream for us very well. We get a lot of rise. And I also know that the county, when I spoke to the regional engineer, they have no dog in this fight. They will put in whatever culvert you all just approve. They have no problem. Whatever the DNR and whatever the watershed district tells them, they'll put it in. So it is an opportune time, and you play a huge role in this because you, right now, have the capability to say, okay, let's take a step back. Let's see what we can put together that works. There were 4 options back in 17 that were proposed, but they had little to no effect on this situation. So we need to keep trying something else, which we are all for. But to do nothing at this opportune time and to put this culvert in that, all the studies say are not going to change anything, we think is a wrong decision on your part. And we would ask that you would please take a step back, reconvene, and try and solve this decades-old problem with your community members, with the people in this watershed that live with this problem every year. Thank you.
Mr. Leonard.
We agree.
Is there any,
Just a little correction here. This isn't the only lake. I had 14 inches of rain in my house in Edina, and it took 37 truckloads of dirt to fill in the washout, because 37 acres drains into my, the wetland behind my house. But the city did nothing but put a concrete spillway in my yard. And I was satisfied with that because I don't think we're gonna have another 14 inches of rain. But,
Is it a backflow event?
no.
Okay, that's.
And this isn't, we shouldn't go
First of
further
all,
with this
you know,
discussion, but thank you for bringing
this-
that up.
It's, you know, I just want to correct it. This is the only place that,
Gotcha.
that stores water, you know, in the district.
Pardon me, is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the board?
I wasn't finished speaking yet.
Very well.
The, you know, I'm not as familiar, obviously, with this as Olson, but isn't the county engineer or the city engineer involved in this, and the city council and the county board? Well, and James?
We do have a representative here from the county. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? Come forward.
Really quick. I'm Mary Dolan, and I live at 5711 Zumbra Drive. And we have been coming to this lake for 20 years, but just purchased in 2016. So only 8 years ago, I wasn't there when the 2014 flooding occurred. But I want to make sure that it's clear that this is not an issue that happened when we had a huge rain year. It's every year we're dealing with no wake zones, no beaches at our houses, and that I think decreases our house values. And yeah, I just want to make sure that. Oh, I also feel like if we've been working with Mayor Funk and the Watershed District and we've been trying to figure out who owns this for so long, and to know that this project was created without just automatically solving this problem that we've been trying to find someone to solve for us is really disheartening. And I'm also a little concerned about, or I would like to maybe know about, like when you say there's benefits upstream, what are we being weighed against? We're being like put aside for what upstream benefits?
Is that an accurate statement, that upstream benefits are created? Mr. Whisker?
President White, managers, what I was referencing earlier is in the hydraulic analysis that we did between 2015 and 17, we looked at, like I said, not an infinite number of solutions, but a range of solutions ranging from changing the outlet control for Stone Lake, changing the culvert under County Road 11, changing the culvert for Lake Zumbra to have backflow prevention, and some of those things in combination. And the flood study, which I know Scott and the residents have, outlines for those solutions, that finite grouping of solutions, kind of create sideboards and direction for all the partners that own the infrastructure, identified, modeled the range of flood reduction that was estimated to be provided on Zumbra Lake during 100-year flood elevations, and what the impacts would be for some of those intermediate resources. If you change the outlet for Stone Lake, you change the water level in Stone Lake. If you change the culvert under County Road 11, there's potential impact downstream in Auburn. And there are residents that live down there as well. So it looked at what are the upstream flood relief benefits and what are the changes in water level across the system as a range of those. So that's really what I was referring to. And at that time, I know this isn't pertinent to the permit, through all those group discussions that I was around for and I was a part of with Mayor Funk and Commissioner Workman and the Three Rivers Park District leadership and Scott Leonard and Dick Hawley, there was agreement, and it's written up in the 2017 study, to pursue, the city was going to pursue an engineering study that it had scoped out and was ready to put some funding to evaluate that flap gate, because it would prevent the backflow that you've heard all the concern about. That wasn't going to be without its challenges, because it changes the 100-year flood level in Sunny. And Three Rivers Park District is a landowner and has a mission and a purpose, and they weren't too keen on changing the 100-year flood elevation in the park, but that's an area where there aren't residents. And there was sort of general mutual agreement that that would be looked at. Three Rivers was concerned but open to seeing the results of the feasibility study. At that point in time, as that was being advanced, it's our understanding from city staff and the city engineer that some of the residents had requested that that not be advanced for a variety of reasons. I think one of which is that it wasn't believed to provide the level of relief that they were looking for, which is something that you just heard just now. So I think part of the challenge with the system is to provide the level of relief that the residents might want, is you have to make such major system changes that you're moving all of the floodwater from one location to another downstream. And that's, obviously the reason watersheds exist, why we're petitioned into existence, and why we have some of the policies on the books that we do. That's what I meant by different upstream and downstream impacts and benefits.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board?
My name is Scott Pekowski, and we live at 5471.
Pardon me, would you sit by the microphone?
I will in just 1 second. Thanks. My name is Scott Pekowski. I live at 5471 Zumbra Circle. We've been there for about 30 years. There was a question that came up from the back. What's the bounce in
This
Lake
is being
Zumbra?
recorded if you sit down in front of the.
He wants to show something on the map.
How high is the ceiling here?
About 9 feet,
7 foot? 6 or more? So on the Minnesota DNR website, you can look up what the bounce is on lakes. And I looked up what the bounce is on Lake Zumbra. According to the DNR website, the bounce on Lake Zumbra is 8 foot. That means that the bounce from low water to high water is higher than what the ceiling is here. We've talked about Lake Auburn being downstream from us. The bounce, according to the Minnesota DNR website, is 3.99 feet. So their water level changes about this much. And I'm not an engineer. I don't want to be an engineer. But it would seem to me that that's what we're, as Zumbra residents, that's what we are looking to be able to get fixed and corrected, is reduce the 8 foot bounce on our lake, and so that we don't have 8 foot. When our houses were built in the 70s, my understanding is it was before the DNR had implemented a lot of the rules that they have today regarding high water mark. And so our basement is 4 foot below grade. So in 14 we had to sandbag also. And I believe, but I can't prove that if the culvert under Highway 11 was different than what it is today and what I think it's being planned for in the future, we would not have the kind of bounce that we do today, and we would end up with less likelihood of having this 8 foot bounce that we have experienced in the past. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. It was me. Thanks. Or no, someone else said it. Yeah.
And if anyone would like, I have the copies that I from the Minnesota DNR website that supports exactly what I said. I'm happy to share them.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board?
Can I say one more thing, just as
You may,
brought up
but come forward.
Okay. I meant to say this before too, but I'm Mary Dolan, 5711 Zumbra Drive. When you're talking about a flap in between Sunny and Zumbra, have you seen that water flow? How many flaps do you have? Because it's just water gushing. It's not like one little spot where you can put a flap. So if you think that there's another solution that's coming, well, we've fought for too many years for this one to even get this far, but I don't see how that was a solution that was considered doable.
And I did hear Mr. Whisker say that it was problematic. Yes?
Yeah, President White, managers, I mean, that was something that was looked at by a team of civil engineers in coordination with the DNR, with the county, with Three Rivers Park District. And I don't know that it was specifically looking at just retrofitting or attaching a flap to the current structure, but probably rather a structure, replacing the structure. But those have been deployed in other locations that do have backwater events. I know it's unusual. There are other locations in the watershed that do backwater during high water events. Lake Minnetonka does it quite a lot in its estuaries, like Halstead Bay. Backwaters, we have flow readers there that see negative flow because the lake comes up and pushes water upstream towards Mud Lake. But a flap gate, as the floodwaters come up, closes under pressure, and the head from the downstream lake will keep that closed, which prevents that volume of water would prevent that volume of water.
Doesn't prevent it from going over, though, the whole system. It doesn't prevent the water from going so high that it's over your whole system and it's just flowing and flowing.
And of course, we aren't designing anything today.
Right, I'm just saying that. And then why did you look at so many solutions? I mean, we know there's a problem. We looked at solutions. Here we have an opportunity to put in a solution and we're not looking at them now.
Well, I think, if I may, President White,
Yes.
I think when you're working on a significant problem that operates at a system scale, you don't look at a single solution. And so that's the main reason, is you always want to consider a system scale solution. And I think the residents here are pretty familiar with the fact that this isn't one problem. It's a system scale problem where you have multiple lakes flowing into each other and backwatering and culverts and connections. So to look at just one solution, I think, would have been a disservice to the residents in the study. And that's pretty common in a feasibility study, that any project that we do, we would look at a range of alternatives, and we would look at, well, which ones provide benefit, which ones don't provide benefit, what are the costs, who are impacted. And our role in that study was really to serve that information out to the people that own the infrastructure as potential pathways forward. None of the solutions are silver bullets that completely eliminate flooding on Zumbra. That's not possible. And all of them have a range of downstream impacts, and there are landowners and people that live downstream. And so we...
Tonight, are they really mad about that? Like, are they really concerned about this and they're here tonight talking? No, they're not. We've been here for years, since day one living in this house. I've been at these meetings, and now to hear that you guys have researched solutions, but nothing's going to be implemented.
Well, I think our perspective, if I may, is that we've researched the solutions and we've offered those up to the people that own and operate the infrastructure. We don't go around designing and reconstructing other folks' infrastructure. And I know it might be an unpopular opinion, but I understand from speaking with the county that there was early engagement, that there were direct calls from the county highway department to residents of Zumbra Lake, who we met with recently, Dick Hawley, that there are emails between them, that they ran a fairly extensive engagement campaign that included 2 open houses, social media, websites, pop-up events at the car show, farmers market, on with the city of Victoria. This has been in the press as part of the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan, and that it's our perspective. We don't typically engage residents on every permit that comes in as part of the community engagement for that project. And so we evaluated the range of solutions. None of them are perfect. There were concerns from the county, Three Rivers, the watershed, and DNR over which ones to compliment back then. A pathway was chosen with the residents on a solution that we're not here to discuss tonight. And the
Thank you,
county's
Mr. Wisdom.
put forward a design that meets the basis of the rules, and that's really the board's emphasis, I think.
Thank you.
And this is what's happened. It's been, oh, am I not allowed to?
Well, if you have something different to say, by all means, add it.
I just want to say that it does, that's what we've dealt with, is a pointing of fingers back and forth to, you need to talk to this person, oh, now, no, that's the person who owns it, no, that's the person who owns it. And so we have dealt with that, so it's like, how can we as residents control this? How can we do more than what we're doing? We're here tonight, and that's what we feel like is all that we can do.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? I see a hand. Come forward.
I want to clarify a couple of things. Okay. There's been a lot of discussion about transferring a problem downstream. Do I have that correct? Is that a big issue?
Would you
Transferring.
just address the board?
Okay, transferring our problem, which I think everybody here can acknowledge is a problem. At least your staff has acknowledged it as a problem. But if some of this water could be migrated downstream, and there's such a big concern about Auburn and its level, you guys, or let me just say, someone has a weir on the west end of Lutsen that ultimately controls the levels upstream. So you have options about how much water to send down 6 Mile Creek in the Halsteads Bay, which I know is a concern of yours. It's one of your objectives for the 6 Mile Creek watershed. But there is 8 homes on Auburn. Most of them are high. There's 2 or 3 that are lower, okay? And then from that point all the way through Lutsen Lake, which is through all of Auburn, and you can see it right there, into Lutsen, which you don't have on the map here, there's nobody. It's the park, okay? Now, we'd have to talk to the park. But I would think some of this water could be migrated through the system in such a way as to not harm anybody else's property or to significantly damage the park. And, you know, those kind of studies downstream beyond Auburn have not been made to my understanding. So even if we could get half of this bounce that Scott talked about alleviated, I mean, that would be a good start. But all of these solutions that have been proposed, as James says, has negligible impact on this problem. And the whole Flapgate thing, I mean, it's a weak solution at best because our lake still doesn't drain. Okay? So that it might help a little bit with the backflow, but it's not really a good solution. So again, I appeal to your sense of let's do what's right at an opportunity when it's not going to cost millions of dollars, and let's try and fix this now. And we are all here to work with you, not against you. But, you know, when it comes to were we notified, and I've looked at all the public, all these public meetings and stuff, they never got granular to this level, to one culvert. They were about schedules and designs and that kind of thing. So I'm sure you can check your box that you did all the appropriate notification, but we were looking for a partner that would call and say, hey, we know you guys have a big interest in this pipe and it's going to be replaced. Let's sit down before we're 2 months before breaking ground and see if we can work something out. We were never notified. So that's why we're here tonight. And that's what we'd like you to rectify, because you have the power here. The DNR's already pushed this past, and now it sits with you. And you guys have the ability to help us fix this.
Thank you for your input, Mr. Leonard. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the board? Come forward.
Can you put the neighborhood with the damage back up here? With the red and
The point
blue?
on Zumbra?
Yeah.
Here we go.
So this is me here in the blue in 2014. I just moved,
I'm sorry, your name and address?
I'm sorry, Amy Siefker, 5441 Zumbra Circle. And we moved into that house in 2020, so almost 5 years ago. We did know about the flooding when the event was happening at the time a few years ago, but we were on Minnewaska. And when we were on Minnewaska for 20 years, I can think of maybe 2 times that we moved our boat lift because of water issues. But since we've been there for 5 years, here now for 5 years, I can't figure out what this lake is doing because it's different every year. And I'm glad he explained the bounce because that makes more sense. Where every year we're trying to figure out what does this lake level want to do. We are all over the place. We went to a record low a year and a couple years ago where all of a sudden all the water's gone. And then last year I watched the water come up and up and up and up and up and up. And I'm thinking, are we going to get back into this kind of flood stage again? Because we all moved our docks and our boats up several times over the summer trying to figure out where it's going to stabilize. And I kept thinking, this is it. This is going to be the highest it's going to be because it hasn't rained. Why isn't it going back down? And watching that, I'm also trying to figure out too, what is stopping a better culvert? Is it budget? Is it that there is a better idea, but you don't want to, the cost is an issue?
The only thing that we are here to do is to act on a permit by an applicant. We don't have any.
Okay, that's just my,
Design.
that's my,
We're not paying the cost.
Yeah.
It's not a cost to us.
okay. I guess I'd
We're
heard,
just looking at our rules and seeing what applies.
okay.
That's
I guess I would love to take advantage of this one time to get it right, that if cost isn't an issue, let's do whatever we can possible to make this the best culvert we can so that we don't have this issue moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Zepker. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the board? All right. Then I have a motion for Manager Miller to approve the permit. Is there a second?
I seconded last time. I'll second.
Oh, okay, I didn't catch that. Thank you, Manager Maxwell. Any questions or discussion by the board? Manager Olson?
I would like to hear from our council on, we're hearing about checking boxes and things like that, but I would like you to review what our situation is from your perspective, please.
Mr. Smith?
Madam President, managers, your task is to review the permit application that's before you, the staff analysis and all the comments that have been made, and consider whether or not the application meets the requirements of your rules. Your actions are always subject to legal review, and the question on review will be, was your decision arbitrary and capricious? Was it supported by the evidence? And so when an application is presented to you that does comply with the rules, unless you can find some basis for it not complying, or you lack evidence that it complies, your role is to approve the permit.
Thank you. Was there a hand over here? Yes, Manager Lofton.
James, a question from historically. In 2015 to 2017, when you were looking at solutions, did you analyze an 18-inch pipe versus a 24-inch pipe? Was there a reason to, I asked that just because the original one was 24 and I heard that it serves the same purpose. And then, because it seems to me, and I could be wrong, that if seems like the desire to have a larger culvert relates to a downstream impact, which the watershed, we're not in the business of changing impacts to, I heard there's not a lot of people down there, but there are 2 or 3 homes down there that are low. I mean, if there's any downstream impact, that's something we have to take very seriously. So I'm just curious if you recall when you picked the solutions to study, how you arrived there.
That's a really great question. I don't know that I have perfect recall on what the
Yeah,
answer is.
it's historical.
I know that leading into the study, there was a lot of inquiry around 2014, and leading into the study, that as we pulled everybody together, we had already heard requests to go from what it is today to something like 6 feet. And to be honest, and be frank, I think that was essentially written off. Because to go from one end of the spectrum to the other would provide, I think we heard there's an 8-foot bounce, and if we could just move half of it downstream, that would be better. And so through the course of the study, I think the engineers selected alternatives that felt within a range of achievable and sideboards, knowing the regulatory environment, the downstream landowners would need to be engaged. They're not going to want to see 4 feet of somebody else's bounce, regardless of how high they are. Three Rivers was opposed. They have successfully litigated as a park agency to my understanding, and this came up through the course conversation, other hydraulic manipulations that have killed all the trees in the park, and they've been awarded damages. And so they were a stakeholder at the table. So there's multiple landowners. Some of them are government agencies. Some of them are tax-paying residents. The county was there. Hey, we're not going to be building the road right now, so, you can look at it, but we're not improving it. Three Rivers owns upstream culvert. So it was really sort of looking at all of those variables, and then identifying a range of solutions that we knew were just completely unpermissible. To drive, I think they looked at twin 18s, side-by-side 18s, under 11. As I mentioned, doing that alone provided 1/10 of a foot benefit for Zumbra. So even if tonight you found a reason to, as legal counsel advised, find a basis to deny the permit, I think the study looked at upsizing the culvert provided very minimal benefit because of the backflow conditions. So you have to chase this through the whole system to such an extent that you are moving an incredibly large volume of water from this upstream area, and you're transferring that risk downstream to Auburn Lake. And I think, as I mentioned, that's why watershed district law exists in the state of Minnesota, is because of those demands, upstream and downstream demands. And the board is subject to those all the time, up and down Minnehaha Creek and in other subwatersheds, and it's a tough role. It's where our regulations come from that look at, let's not exacerbate upstream or downstream rise. So I don't know that I perfectly answered your question on what the basis of feasible alternatives were, but there were a lot of voices at the table that were informing what we could and should not look at.
That helps, thank you.
Anything else before we vote? All those in favor of approving the permit with the conditions stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
6-1, the motion does carry.
I feel bad about voting no on it, but, because I usually just base it on my vote on science and facts, but I think the citizens here weren't properly notified, by the various other government agencies that were approving this thing, so they had a chance to negotiate with them and talk to them. So that's why I vote against it.
Thank you, Manager Miller. Thank you, Ms. Minden. We'll take a short recess to allow people to shuffle around and come back. All right, back to order. The next item on the agenda is, are there any board inquiries, issues, or ideas to bring forward this evening? see.
I got some, but I'm gonna keep them to myself.
Okay, that's fair. And then Administrator's Report, Mr. Whisker.
I think it's reasons.
Oh, I'm sorry. Room.
Yeah, I had a question I was going to raise on James, the district engineer. Want that input back, which is that we've been seeing over the last year or two how weather whiplash has been causing things like, the fires in California, and there's a fire in New England, there's a fire in South Carolina, and so on. And I'm wondering whether we should start attending to that and noticing what that effect is. For example, yes, we only pay attention to water, but fire on our watershed district is going to affect the ecology of the district. And so I'm wondering if we should spend any time looking at the potential impact of weather whiplash and what impact it would have on our watershed district. Positive and negative, and then think about whether there's anything we need to do about it.
Okay, thank you.
So that's something I wanted to bring up.
Put that on the list. Anything else? All right, Mr. Whisker.
Thank you, President White. Have a few updates from staff here this evening. Becky's team has successfully recruited and hired a GIS coordinator. So it's been a minute since Alex Steele left, and we're now very excited to welcome Owen Stuckey, who will be taking that position on April 7th. He's got a decent background. It was a really fun interview. He has 9 years of GIS experience and is currently working as the GIS coordinator for the Omaha Area Planning Agency, sort of the equivalent of our Met Council. He's got pretty strong.
Have you ever been to Omaha?
I know. Hopefully he doesn't watch the board video, but I think he enjoys Omaha. But I think through his interview, expressed a really, really strong desire to hit Minneapolis, St. Paul. He's got some friends here. He's big in the music scene. He likes the culture, the vibrancy of Minneapolis, a little bit more in Omaha. But he spent about 8 years there, working his way up from GIS intern into coordinator. Is a licensed drone pilot. Has done some really impressive things in terms of analysis, as well as stood up some of their enterprise GIS, so field data collection, enterprise, as well as analysis, and seemed to have an eye for design and making really cool looking maps. And we were looking for that blend of analysis, cartography, as well as enterprise. So I think he's excited to be in Minneapolis, maybe more than Omaha, and we're really excited to have him.
Just an aside, because I was involved in it a lot. In Omaha, they got what they call sanitary improvement districts, where the government doesn't have anything to do with the streets or sewer. The developers can go out, buy a piece of land, develop it, and sell tax-exempt municipal bonds to finance it. And it may or may not be part of any plan or anything. And Omaha goes like 60 miles west of the city, with all these developments all spread, they may be 4 or 5 miles apart. And it's just a metropolitan agency's disaster. That's why I was commenting about that.
All right, thank you.
I wonder if he made their maps. Well, shifting gears, we're going to be excited for Owen to come, and you'll grill him when we do the interviews in the committee. You can ask him all about what a disaster the sewer district plans were and what kind of mapping challenges they presented. We've got a letter of support that I'll be sending out that Becky's vetted for an LCCMR proposal by the University of Minnesota and one of their faculty. It's a proposal to generate high-resolution sub-1 meter land cover maps. It's really an update to land cover and classification using new imagery and LiDAR data to enhance land classification for the metro area, and that's something that Hennepin County, Three Rivers, and others are supporting and are involved in. We think that that'll support us on stormwater management planning, climate resilience efforts, and is just a really valuable data set and a low-risk way to support good data collection. Last week, the Sun Patriot published a story on Carver County water management that did include mention of our February 18th presentation, Bill, to the Carver County Board of Commissioners. The reporter highlighted our recent and ongoing efforts in the 6 Mile Creek Halstead Bay region, some of the upcoming work with partners to develop the 2027 plan, and our integrated flood management strategies we adapt to climate change. Tessa wanted me to let you know we are this close to moving past our old AV system. All the equipment is in hand, and the install begins Monday, so we'll be doing a week of install with IT professionals and then test driving that, and hopefully have a seamless first run at the March 27th meeting. Because of the way all the microphones and everything are working, we've talked this through, and I think it's going to maybe get a little bit tighter back up at the dais, but Lewis and I are going to be moving back up. Hopefully that's comfortable for the board. We used to sit up there, and I told Tess I'm a creature of habit. When I sat up here, I was uncomfortable because I used to be staff, and now I sit here. I'm really comfortable, and I'm going to be really uncomfortable moving back. So we'll be getting the AV equipment installed. We'll test run that, and we'll be live on the 27th, and it'll make all of our presentations recorded for the public, so that'll be a really nice feature. And then we've got a few projects that Rachel Baker and Kaylee Cermak are moving forward. You know about County Road 6 and the East Auburn wetland just upstream of the lake that we were just talking about. And we're going to be having some community meetings coming up in the next month or so. And I'm letting you know, but you'll get some emails as well. There may be some MailChimp distributions too as those go out to communities. And so we're hosting these public meetings as the board's approaching consideration of 90% design. And we've got the East Auburn Wetland. The public meeting for that is going to be Tuesday, March 25th at Victoria City Hall, 6:30 to 8 p.m. And then the County Road 6 public meeting is going to be Thursday, April 3rd at Orono City Hall. And again, we'll be advertising the meetings through all of our usual channels. You let me know now if you're like, yes, I'm in, and somebody will make note of it. Otherwise, let us know offline so that we can make sure we understand which board members are going to be joining us.
What's the dates?
Tuesday, March 25th, Victoria City Hall for Auburn, 6:30 to 8. And then County Road 6 is going to be Thursday, April 3rd, Orono City Hall, 6:30 to 8.
I'll plan to be at the meeting on the 25th.
Okay.
And probably the 3rd also. I have the 25th on my calendar already.
Okay. I know the city manager in Orono is tracking and said he was going to bring it up during the city manager's report since there's new council. And we may see a couple of council members kind of cycle through. They're maybe interested. So another thing that's not on the list, but I know happened today and tomorrow and into Monday, is the Lake Hiawatha design team has hosted a charrette. We're one of the key stakeholders along with the DNR and others. So Rachel Baker, who's our project lead for Minneapolis, attended that design charrette today. It's a whole, you guys have been in charrettes before, you participated in the one for 325, but it's a whole day of sort of stations where they're collecting design ideas, testing those against science, then reporting out at the end of the day. And there'll be 3 of those, and then that will start to inform the schematic design for the redesign of the Hiawatha Golf Course. And then I think the last thing to provide you an update on, last meeting, the board authorized distribution of a letter to our neighbor, Campbell Seavey, that went out by certified mail. We heard back within about 8 hours from their attorney. We'll circulate that response. We're currently evaluating that with legal counsel. It just came in yesterday. So I won't say that they were moved by our letter, and they did reaffirm that they understand that we're looking to expand use on our own property and that they oppose it. So that's sort of where that stands, and there'll be more to come on that. I think we'll work through that with Chuck and Lewis, and then we'll be back at a subsequent board meeting. And that's it for the administrator's report.
Thank you. I was going to comment about coming back to having the two of you up at the dais, that today, there was a lot of news about that. This was the 5th year anniversary of that stay-at-home order that the governor issued 5 years ago,
Wow.
on March 13th, so.
Which order?
The stay-at-home order, at the beginning of
pandemic.
COVID,
He had a 2-week stay-at-home.
So 5 years.
And it was that, then we had a meeting
Oh,
here
yeah.
where there were like 3 people in the room.
How quaint that we all thought that was going to be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I remember leaving and being like, oh, wow, 2 weeks? This is wild.
Yeah. The world changed. All right, thank you for your report, James. Our next item will be 12.1, and so thanks staff for being here, but we'll move into that smaller group. Okay, Lewis, would you state the reason the board would go into closed session? Or
Madam President, we recommend the board go into closed session for the purpose of considering the expiration or revision of terms of the purchase and sale agreement for 325 Lake Road in Hopkins.
thank you. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Manager Maxwell, second.
Second.
Manager Olson. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in closed session.
Yeah.
Okay, a motion to go back into open session. Second from someone? Mr. Tamati, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in open session. The Board of Managers just held a closed session for the purpose of discussing the potential expiration or revision of terms of the purchase and sale agreement of 325 Lake Road in Hopkins. I wish to note for the record that given the amount of time that the developer has been out of compliance with the terms of the purchase and sale agreement, and that MCWD has a fully designed and funded water resource project that can no longer reasonably be delayed to fulfill the MCWD's mission, the board has directed that staff prepare a notice of termination of the purchase and sale agreement for the board's consideration at its regularly scheduled meeting of March 27, 2025, and further has directed staff to take additional action as discussed in closed session. With that, the meeting is adjourned.